Namaskar. A warm welcome to World News and Indian Perspective on All India Radio. This is Manoj Singh Rana, and with me is Aditi Lumba, bringing glimpses of major developments of the day from across the globe. Over the next half an hour, we shall bring you the latest from the world of politics, economy, sports, entertainment and more. As the world fights the COVID-19 pandemic, we begin with a message of caution to stay safe and protected by following these 3 simple steps. Wear a face mask, maintain social distancing, and focus on hand and face hygiene. The headlines. US Secretary of Defense Lloyd James Austin calls on Prime Minister Narendra Modi in New Delhi, discusses bilateral, regional and global issues of mutual interest. India crosses milestone of 400 million COVID-19 vaccinations. India stresses need for building resilient systems for the sustainable use of water at the UN. European Medicines Agency says Astrazeneca coronavirus vaccine safe and effective. Rating agency Moody's projects India's GDP to grow by 12% this year. India's Nikhat Zareen stuns 2-time world champion Nazim Kizaibe of Kazakhstan enter semi-final of Bosphorus boxing tournament. US Secretary of Defense Lloyd James Austin III called on Prime Minister of India Narendra Modi on Friday in New Delhi. The Prime Minister outlined his vision for the strategic partnership between 2 countries and emphasized the important role of bilateral defense cooperation in India-US ties. Mr. Modi welcomed the warm and close relationship between the 2 countries, which is rooted in shared values of democracy, pluralism and commitment to a rules-based order. He requested Secretary Austin to convey his best wishes to President Biden. Secretary Austin reiterated the US government's continued commitment towards strengthening the bilateral defense relations between the 2 countries. He expressed US's strong desire to further enhance the strategic partnership for peace, stability and prosperity in the Indo-Pacific region and beyond. Secretary Austin conveyed greetings of President Biden to the Prime Minister. US Defense Secretary Lloyd J. Austin arrived in New Delhi this evening. He will meet Defense Minister Rajnath Singh and other senior dignitaries of the government to discuss deepening the India-US major defense partnership. They will also discuss advancing cooperation for a free, prosperous and open Indo-Pacific region. Discussions regarding defense cooperation would also focus on how both countries could consolidate military-to-military cooperation and defense trade and industry cooperation. Mr. Austin's visit to India as part of his first overseas travel emphasizes the strength of the India-US strategic partnership. India has stressed the need for building resilient systems that can provide long-term solutions for the sustainable use of water. Speaking at a United Nations General Assembly UNGA high-level meeting on water, Jal Shakti Minister Gajendra Singh Shekhawat said, "There is no doubt that in the Indian journey to achieve the 2030 agenda, water supply and sanitation have to be at the center of our global efforts." He said there is a need to build resilient systems that provide long-term solutions for sustainable use of water. Mr. Shekhawat said the Clean India mission, which was launched in 2014 to achieve universal sanitation, became the world's biggest sanitation campaign with the construction of 110 million toilets in only 6 years, resulting in open defecation-free India. The minister said the government recently launched the Water is Life mission, or Jal Jeevan, a $50 billion project to provide safe and piped drinking water to all households by 2024.
The Clean India campaign successfully effected a positive behavioral transformation by nudging people to adapt better sanitation and hygiene standards. Our experience also teaches us that women's role in management of water and sanitation facilities is crucial in ensuring sustainability. Mr. President, there is no doubt that in our journey to achieve the 2030 agenda, water supply and sanitation have to be the center of our global efforts. We need to make water available to the most vulnerable. At the same time, we need to build resilient systems that provide long-term solutions for sustainable use of water.
In his opening remark at the meeting, the UN General Assembly President Volkan Bozkir said Access to water is not just about liquid in a bottle, but instead touches on universal issues such as dignity, opportunity and equality. He said it is a moral failure that we live in a world with such high levels of technical innovation and success, but we continue to allow billions of people to exist without clean drinking water or the basic tools to wash their hands.
India's Environment Minister Prakash Javadekar has said that India's forest cover is continuously increasing and it has reached to 24.56% of geographical area of the country. He was replying to supplementaries during question hour in Lok Sabha on Friday. He asserted India is on a track to achieve its target set under the Paris Agreement for combating climate change. The minister said implementation of the National Action Plan on Climate Change and other measures have led to reduction in emission intensity of GDP by 24% between 2005 and 2016. Replying to a question about the increasing pollution level in the country, the minister said the government has taken a series of measures to reduce the carbon emission and is committed to reduce the pollution level in 100 cities in the next 5 years under the National Clean Air Program announced by the Prime Minister Narendra Modi.
प्रधानमंत्री ने स्वतंत्रता दिन पर इस बार लाल किले के प्राचीर से बताया है कि आने वाले 5 साल में हम 100 शहरों में जहां प्रदूषण का समस्या है उस प्रदूषण की स्थिति में सुधार करेंगे और उसके लिए हमने नेशनल क्लीन एयर प्रोग्राम तैयार किया है और उसका हर सिटी वाइज प्रोफाइल अलग होता है प्रदूषण का कारण अलग होते हैं तो उन कारणों पर उपाय करने वाले एक हर शहर का प्लान बन गया है उसके लिए हमने पैसा भी दिया है और सभी राज्यों के साथ काम करके हम प्रधानमंत्री के लक्ष्य को निश्चित हासिल करेंगे.
The minister added that India's net emission of carbon is very low as compared to other developed countries and the country is taking every possible step to lower the emission level. The second edition of Indo-Uzbekistan Joint Field Training Exercise Dust Lake 2 culminated on Friday after 10 days of mutual learning. A report.
In the joint exercise, which began on 10th of this month, training was focused on counter-insurgency, counter-terrorism operations in urban scenario as well as sharing of expertise on skills at arms. Indian Defence Ministry in a statement said that the exercise also provided an opportunity to troops of both armies to foster everlasting professional and social bonding. After intense military training, the joint exercise concluded with both armies exhibiting their combat power and dominance over the terrorist groups during the validation exercise. The closing ceremony showcased the immense talent with unique traditional touch of both nations. The senior officials expressed their satisfaction and gratitude towards the professional conduct of the exercise. The bonhomie and goodwill generated during the exercise will go a long way in future strengthening the bonds between the armed forces of both countries. Anita Anand, AIR World News.
India has scaled a landmark peak in its fight against COVID-19. As part of the world's largest vaccination exercise, more than 400 million doses have been administered to date. The Health Ministry has said that in the last 24 hours, more than 2,200,000 people were inoculated with COVID-19 vaccine doses. The country saw a spike in reported cases, taking the total number of new infections to over 39,000 in the past 24 hours. The country's COVID-19 recovery rate is 96.26% at present, with a total recovery of more than 20,000 patients in the last 24 hours. Currently, the number of active cases is over 200,000, which comprises 2.36% of the total positive cases. The Government of India on Friday reiterated that COVID-19 vaccines are safe and there should be no doubt on their efficacy. Replying to supplementaries during the question hour in the Lok Sabha today, Health and Family Welfare Minister Dr. Harshvardhan said that any vaccine undergoes rigorous scientific trials and expert scrutiny at national and international level before it is administered. He said minimal side effects have been reported with regard to COVID-19 vaccines in the country so far. He urged the people to come forward to take COVID-19 vaccines.
India continues its vaccine metri to supply made-in-India COVID-19 vaccines to countries across the globe. Solomon Islands on Friday received Indian-made COVID-19 vaccines. Meanwhile, Mauritius has received a commercial supply of 2 lakh doses of Covaxin vaccination from India. In a tweet, Zubair Jumai senior advisor to Prime Minister of Mauritius and the chairman of the National Vaccination Committee for COVID-19, gave this information. He said that Covaxin landed in Mauritius this morning and was handed over to the Minister of Health. He thanked the prompt intervention of Prime Minister Pravin Jugnauth, Prime Minister Narendra Modi and High Commissioner of India to Mauritius, K. Nandini Singla. Bharat Biotech Covaxin has demonstrated 81% interim efficacy in preventing COVID-19. Under the Vaccine Maitri initiative, India has been providing coronavirus vaccines to its neighbouring countries. 72 countries have already received vaccines under the Vaccine Maitri program. Legendary Jamaican and West Indies cricketer Chris Gayle has thanked Prime Minister Narendra Modi, people and Government of India for the gift of Made in India vaccines to Jamaica. He said India's Vaccine Maitri is very much appreciated.
Honorable Prime Minister Mr. Modi, people of India, the Government of India, I want to thank you all for your donation of vaccine to Jamaica. We appreciate it. Thank you so much. India, I will be seeing you soon. All right? Thanks again. Love and appreciate it. Thank you so much.
India's Stelis Biopharma has partnered with the Russian Direct Investment Fund RDIF to make at least 200 million doses of Sputnik V. The Strides Pharma Science, the parent company of Stelis Biopharma, in a statement on Friday said RDIF and Stelis Biopharma partner will supply 200 million doses of the Sputnik V vaccine. Sputnik V, developed by Moscow's Gamaleya Institute, has proved 91.6% effectiveness against COVID-19 and has been approved for use in more than 50 countries, with the fund signing supply deals with more than 13 nations. India, the world's largest vaccine maker, has now become one of the biggest producers of the shot outside Russia. Other countries producing it include Brazil, China and South Korea. Now let's take a look at the coronavirus updates from around the world.
European Medicines Agency has said that Astrazeneca coronavirus vaccine is safe and effective. European Medicines Agency's Safety Committee said this on Thursday after concluding its preliminary review of people vaccinated with COVID-19 vaccine AstraZeneca. This comes after several countries temporarily suspended use of the vaccine over fears about side effects. Earlier, the World Health Organization had reaffirmed its support for the shot. Meanwhile, Germany, France and other European nations have announced plans to resume using AstraZeneca's COVID-19 vaccine after EU and British regulators moved to shore up confidence in the shot, saying its benefits outweigh the risks. A consignment of 300,000 doses of the COVID-19 vaccine arrived in Somalia this week, a year after the country detected its first case of the virus. Cuba's Drug Regulatory Authority on Thursday approved second COVID-19 vaccine candidate for late-stage clinical trials. The Philippines has approved Russia's Sputnik V COVID-19 vaccine for emergency use. It has recorded a record daily increase in COVID-19 infections on Friday as authorities tightened coronavirus curbs in the capital. France has imposed a month-long lockdown in Paris in the wake of spread of highly contagious coronavirus variants. Britain's Culture Minister Oliver Dowden said on Friday that it will pilot using COVID-19 certificates to reopen sport to fans. Anita Anand, AIR World News.
The World Bank has approved USD 500 million financing to help Bangladesh vaccinate 54 million people against COVID-19. The additional financing to COVID-19 emergency response and pandemic preparedness project will help Bangladesh in procuring vaccines, expanding storage facilities and distribute it to 31% of its population. World Bank Senior Operations Officer for the project and Task Team Leader for the project, Ifat Mahmood, said that the project will continue to support the setting up of testing laboratories and expanding intensive care provision at the district level. This is All India Radio giving you the news. For quick news updates round the clock, follow us on our Twitter handle at AIR News Alerts.
3 steps to stay protected and stay safe from COVID-19. Wear face mask, 2 gaz ki duri to maintain social distancing, maintain hand and face hygiene.
Welcome back to the World News. Embassy of India, Seoul launched the Festival of Independence, India at 75, the 75-week celebrations on Friday. During the ceremony, a video message by Prime Minister Narendra Modi was screened, which was delivered at the inauguration of the curtain raiser activities of the India at 75 at Sabarmati, Gujarat in India on March 12th, and the inauguration of Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, the Festival of Independence. Shri Prahlad Singh Patel, Minister of Culture and Tourism, Government of India, as the guest of honour, expressed happiness at the engagement of people of India in this Festival of Independence and said this festival will assume the form of a mass movement by the time it completes 75 weeks. On this occasion, Mr. Hwang Hee, Minister of Culture, Sports and Tourism, Republic of Korea, gave the congratulatory remarks highlighting the long cultural and historical ties between the two countries. He also shared the common struggle of the people of India and Korea against their colonial rulers. As companions who went through same hardship and challenges, the long-standing history of trust and solidarity between India and Korea is opening a new chapter of hope in our shared journey, said the minister. Shri Priya Ranganathan, Ambassador of India to the Republic of Korea, gave the welcome remarks and highlighted the principle of democracy, social justice and equality and the inclusiveness of the Indian society. A dance and musical rendition by the artists from India were also screened during the event. India shares its Independence Day, that is August the 15th, with the people of the Republic of Korea.
India has strongly condemned the terrorist attack at a security post in Tessit in Gao region in Mali that resulted in the killing of 33 Malian soldiers on 15th of this month. India extended deepest condolences to the families of the soldiers as well as the people and the government of Mali and wished for the speedy recovery of all the other injured soldiers. India has handed over 4 schools reconstructed at a cost of Nepali rupees 167 million to Nepal. The schools were reconstructed according to the earthquake resilient reconstruction norms of Government of Nepal. We have a report.
Embassy of India to Nepal in a statement said that the 4 new schools will provide better learning environment to over 1,800 students studying in them. The schools are part of 71 educational institutes across 8 districts being built under Government of India grant assistance of $50 million for reconstruction in the education sector. By now, the construction of 8 schools is completed and construction of 62 schools is ongoing. India has also committed reconstruction grant of $200 million for reconstruction projects in housing, health and cultural heritage sectors. Presently, nearly 47,000 houses under owner-driven model have already been completed in Gorkha and Nuwakot districts and work in the remaining houses is underway. Total of 147 health buildings and restoration of 28 cultural heritage sites in total 11 districts of Nepal affected by earthquake in 2015 under Indian Reconstruction Grant. Anita Anand, AIR World News.
In Bangladesh, the local police on Friday arrested 22 people involved in the attack on Hindu house in the Nuagaon village in Sunamganj. Police conducted raids in different places in Shala Upazila in the last 24 hours and arrested the culprits. A large mob had attacked the Nuagaon village in Sunamganj on Wednesday after a local youth made a Facebook post against a leader of the hardline Islamist group Hifazat-e-Islam. The Hifazat-e-Islam leaders have participated in a public meeting in the area on Monday in which they had made speeches against which the local youth posted some comments on the Facebook. It allegedly enraged the supporters of the leader of Hifazat-e-Islam who attacked the village. Taking action on the incident, the Director General of Rapid Action Battalion Chaudhry, Abdullah Al-Mamun, visited the victims of the attacks on Thursday. He had assured that people involved in the attacks on Hindu households will not be spared. Meanwhile, senior Awami leader and Road Transport Minister Ubaidul Qadir said that the government is committed to ensuring coexistence and security of people for the religions. He said that the government has instructed authorities to take action against the culprits.
Baloch political activists have raised the issue of human rights violations in Balochistan province by the Pakistani security agencies during the 46th session of the United Nations Human Rights Council in Geneva. Secretary General of Baloch People's Congress, Wajah Siddiqui Azad, during the intervention yesterday, drew the Council's attention towards the terrible human rights situation in Balochistan. He said the depressive cases of missing persons have been going on for decades now. Mr. Azad said Pakistan's human rights violations are no longer hidden. He said it has become an unacknowledged fact that the Pakistan Army is committing the worst human rights violations in Balochistan. At least 9 protesters were killed on Friday as protests continued in Myanmar against the military government, which took over power from the civilian leader Aung San Suu Kyi on February the 1st.
The armed forces resorted to use of live ammunition against the protesters in the central town of Ong Ban, killing at least 8 people, says Reuters, quoting an official of the funerary services in the town. One protester was killed in the northeastern town of Loi Khao, said the Myanmar Now news portal. There are reports of firing and death from South Yangon in the Yangon area. In the Taketa area of Yangon, also, police firing is reported, though no figures of casualties are available. Protests against the military government continued in several towns and regions of Myanmar, including Mandalay, Tongai, Hapakhant, Khin Og, and Kito Ithuto. Since most of the newspapers have been shut in the country, the figures about injuries and death are difficult to come by. According to the organization tracking political prisoners and deaths in the protest in Myanmar, AAPP, the death toll in Myanmar has gone up to 224 as on Thursday. A journalist of BBC was reported missing on Friday as some plainclothes men picked him up from the Nepai Tau area. BBC and the British High Commission in Myanmar released statements expressing concern over the disappearance of the journalist and urged the authorities to help locate him. The UN has asked the security forces in Myanmar to vacate 60 schools and university campuses in 13 states and regions that they have occupied. Save the Children, UNESCO and UNICEF said in a statement that the occupation of schools is a serious violation of the rights of the children. Anita Anand, AIR World News.
Meanwhile, Indonesian President Joko Widodo on Friday called for Southeast Asian leaders to hold a high-level meeting to try to find a way out of Myanmar's escalating crisis. In a virtual address, Jokowi said Indonesia urges that the use of violence in Myanmar be stopped immediately so that there are no more victims.
The first high-level US-China meeting in Alaska began on a fiery start on Thursday with an acrimonious exchange of words and a rare public display as two powers tried to score over the other. After the telephonic conversation between both the presidents, hopes were rekindled and China called for a reset in the ties. But as the summit neared, both sides began taking tough stand towards each other, downplaying the chances of real progress. More from our Beijing correspondent.
Responding to the fiery opening session on Thursday, China put the onus on US to break the diplomatic protocols and said that it accepted the talks at the request of US and that formal talks are yet to take place. Reports suggest that after the opening remarks, closed-door interactions appear to have been more congenial and the talks were substantive, serious and direct. Both the sides outlined their interests and priorities. Another round of closed-door talks will take place Friday morning US time. While Beijing has made it clear it prefers a stable relationship, it differs with the US on many issues including trade tariff, human rights issues and its relations with countries in larger Indo-Pacific region where US has put up a big show of strength along with its friendly countries. Anshuman Mishra, for World News, All India Radio, Beijing.
This is All India Radio giving you the world news.
American business and financial services company Moody's Analytics has projected India's GDP to grow by 12% in 2021. In an earlier estimate last November, it had said India's GDP will grow at 9% in the calendar year. In an updated projection released yesterday, it said India's near-term prospects have turned more favorable following a stronger than expected December quarter when GDP grew by 0.4% over the year following a 7.5% contraction in the September quarter. Domestic and external demand has been on the mend since the easing of restrictions, which has led to improved manufacturing output in recent months. Battered by the coronavirus pandemic, the Indian economy is officially projected to contract 8% in financial year 21, in its worst show in more than 4 decades. However, most professional forecasters have projected double-digit growth for India in financial year 22, considered mostly a statistical rebound than a V-shaped recovery. Last week, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, OECD, said the Indian economy is expected to grow 12.6% in financial year 22, the highest among G20 countries. Earlier this month, Moody's Investors Service, which operates independently of its sister organization, Moody's Analytics, had projected the Indian economy to grow 13.7% in financial year 22. Moody's Analytics said it expects private consumption and non-residential investment to pick up in the next few quarters and strengthen domestic demand revival in 2021. However, a key risk to recovery in 2021 remains a strengthening second wave of COVID-19, it said. The good news is that the resurgence appears to be limited to just a few states, which should increase the chances of containing the spread at an early stage, the report added. Talking to All India Radio, economist Naveen Gupta said,
12% from its previous forecast of 9% in November. This is good news for the country, and this shows the efforts of the Government of India, which have been consistently coming out with various measures, is successful. In December quarter, India has a very strong GDP growth rate of 0.4%, up from -7.5% in September 2020. This is because GST collection has been consistently over month on month has been more than 110 lakh crore. We are having unprecedented levels of forex reserves. Foreign portfolio investment is rising, rise in bank credit, and in future, private consumption is going to go up. Because of this reason, our country is going to be into virtuous circle and it will increase the employment.
Now let us take a look at the major developments around the world as reported in the foreign press.
Washington Post reports that Biden will send Mexico surplus vaccine as U.S. seeks help on immigration enforcement. The New York Times writes that Biden administration strategy to curb Beijing faces a challenge as China uses its economic, diplomatic and military might to deflect criticism. The Sydney Morning Herald reports that Denmark plans to reduce the number of non-European residents in housing developments across the country to 30% or less within 10 years in the latest in a succession of tough proposals on immigration. The Globe and Mail writes that Canadian national Michael Spavor's secret trial ends without verdict in China. Global Times reports that motive in Georgia spa shootings unclear, but Asian Americans fearful. Khalij Times writes that UAE to test cloud zapping drones to increase rainfall. Anita Anand, AIR World News.
Moving on to sports, Indian boxer Nikhil Zareen on Friday stunned two-time world champion Nazim Kazave of Kazakhstan to enter the women's 51-kilogram semi-finals at the Bosphorus boxing tournament in Istanbul, Turkey. Zareen registered 4-1 win over Kazave, a gold medalist from 2014 and 2016 World Championships. Zareen had earlier defeated 2019 world champion Ekaterina Paltaseva of Russia in the pre-quarterfinals. Zareen has ensured herself at least a bronze medal with a place in the last 4.
A quick look at the headlines once again. U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd James Austin calls on Prime Minister Narendra Modi in New Delhi, discusses bilateral, regional and global issues of mutual interest. India crosses milestone of 400 million COVID-19 vaccinations. India stresses need for building resilient systems for the sustainable use of water at the UN. European Medicines Agency says Astrazeneca coronavirus vaccine safe and effective. Rating agency Moody's projects India's GDP to grow by 12% this year. And India's Nikhil Zareen stuns two-time world champion Nazim Kazave of Kazakhstan enters semi-final of Bosphorus boxing tournament. India is celebrating the 151st birth anniversary of Mahatma Gandhi. Before we end, let us listen to his favorite bhajan, Vaishnav Jan, by artists from Kuwait. And with that, we end this bulletin. See you at same time tomorrow with the next edition of World News.